Philosophers talk to our times, fracturing the prism. One of the things one has to understand about how we got to where we are is something I talked about a long time ago on this channel, is that somewhere in the 80s, with the invention of the microchip, a power differential opened up and has kept on opening between the relative powers of the state and the relative power of the individual. I always thought that the reason monetarism was lucky is a defunct doctrine that ought not to have changed the world at all in the 80s. But it did it partly on the back of an oil crisis, which made meanness seem attractive, but really on the back of the microchip, the computerization of the world, because it became the language within which that computerization existed. A kind of hippie free-for-all, which infuses Silicon Valley to this day, and created an unholy alliance between the state and those tech companies caught up in this technological revolution, I suppose. And what the effect, of course, was to hugely augment the powers of the state, what it could do, how it could regulate the people, how it could do accounts, how it could report back to itself. Its knowledge greatly increased with each generation of computers. While our power differential has increased a bit, but we're linear to its exponential. And we are reaching now the truly exponential phase, because now it is increasing hundreds of folds. I mean, the technologies of AI and the rest, large language model, I hate calling it AI, large language model, are very good at making citizens necessarily fully clear, fully there for the government to know about. And even the least authoritarian governments, no, I'm going to put it another way, even the most democratic governments desperately want to know everything they can about their people, because it is in that knowledge that their power lies, both on the level of the state, but also on the level of politics. Know thy people is kind of the mantra of old-fashioned politics. Modern politics is create thy people. A manufacturer people, a chosen people would be very much the right-wing creed at the moment. But also that becomes possible with such engines of desire as the large language models open up. Ability to regulate how your eye flickers as you look around the page so that they can pour down ads that are tailored to your very lusts. All that crap. Okay. And I am left always wondering, WTF, why aren't we demanding the same is done for large corporations? Where is the movement saying? And there might be, I might have just blinked and missed it. I honestly might have done. I live in deeply rural France, and I'm caught up in French news. But it doesn't seem to me that there is a mass movement for saying, well, look, if we are going to be absolutely visible, that actually every big tech organisation has to be as visible as we are. I'm not going to be vindictive. I'm not going to have to make them more visible than I am. But all my finances have to be surrendered to the French state just to see if I'm corrupt. I'm not corrupt, and I don't mind terribly much because I'm not, and I understand about states. But most of my friends absolutely loathe it. And I kind of understand why they do. But it's not just that, it's my health records. It's absolutely everything about me is visible. And as the French government websites are never very good, it regularly gets hacked and sold to whoever wants to advertise stuff to me. Why aren't we doing the same for corporations then? Why isn't Google forced to show how much power its data centers actually use and how much water? Why not? Why aren't all the backhanded finances This will answer the question for you. The way that large corporations bribe governments, necessarily visible. I would actually, it's one of those few things I would try to do if I was, now you'd need to be president of at least Europe, but probably the world. I would render all corporations necessarily visible. And if they made a mistake that looked deliberate, I would unincorporate them. And that would mean all their shareholders lost everything. Straight away. I mean it that savagely. And if that holds up the global economy, yes, it does. That's right, I'm comfortable with that. I don't need to live in a world of perpetual growth. But I do need to live in a world where large amounts of money can't bribe political systems, where I am being rendered thoroughly visible, while those companies that render me thoroughly visible are utterly opaque, because the power injustice is too great. More than that, it isn't good for the sanity of those who are rendered so visible. I mean it. I've also talked on this channel that one of the banes of my life, because I'm a snob of the worst sort, is those people who say, I've done my own research. And what they've meant is they've done a few word puzzles, they've looked up a few things online, they've read Candace Owen or whoever, they've put on a tin hat, and they think they now know stuff. And the problem is that in the system that we currently live in, it is clearly a conspiracy. But the conspiracy, as I always say with most conspiracies, is always in plain sight. The conspiracy, it doesn't need to be explained. It's just a day-to-day way we live. In a world where individuals are being asked to become more and more visible and companies are not. Even as companies are becoming more and more powerful in relation to the individual. In that world, conspiracy is simply the currency. Because anything Google does, if it doesn't need to tell us, anything OpenAI does, if it doesn't need to tell us, is a conspiracy. All the bits of data they have on us, all the ways that they analyse us. And so, all my friends doing their own research, trying to understand the world their way, they're not doing anything stupid, they're doing something very clever. But they're doing it without any tools that are capable of understanding it. And that means they have to go to data sets they do not understand. And my query about data sets, about whether a non-representative group, so people who moan on the internet about this product or that product, represent anything that's reliable, they don't, they never could statistically, becomes a very real problem. So you can't even do your own research about health, because all you will find is those people who've reported back online, and they're not representative. They're not going to tell you the information that you need. They'll tell you how this thing affects certain people, but that isn't enough to predict how it will affect you. But that's a slightly different statistical point, but one that needs to be made as well. But actually, if you had the genuine data for the way AI has affected not just the tax accounts of large corporations, which I'd make totally visible. Absolutely. And governments, why not? Including all the backhand payments. But I would also do it, as I said, for their electricity, for their water, for their social welfare policies, for the amount of pensions they pay, all the rest of it. Let's see it all, and for everybody. You could say, well, but won't that disadvantage certain companies? Well, doesn't it disadvantage me rendering all my stuff visible to the government and then being hacked by websites? Oh, it certainly does a bit, yes. I could certainly, if I was a ninny, lose money that way because I could easily be scammed. I could easily be found out. So what makes corporations so different? Why is their privacy so much more important than my privacy? I don't understand. I mean, I do understand. I understand that the reason why everybody assumes that their privacy matters more than mine is straight and very simple corruption. Corruption? It's a corrupt system. And so all my friends with their endless conspiracy theories thinking, we must research this, something is clearly going on, are right. The entire system, with its disjoint of different forms of knowledge, is fundamentally wrong-headed. It's fundamentally caught up in a schema that is increasing the power of those who are rendering us more and more visible and are using that powers in ways that are not socially very advantageous to us, while all the while, for reasons that are lost in corruption, in money, in whatever, our states do nothing about it. So, if you want a sensible policy for shattering the prism, a sensible policy that would allow us to live in a very, very different world, it is whatever duties we have as citizens to expose our data, corporations absolutely ought to, must do, have the same. And one should vote against any party that would have it otherwise, any world that would have it otherwise. Because it is only in that maximum visibility, only in knowing exactly what they are doing. Oh, of course, we would count the carbon as well. Only in knowing exactly how they are polluting, that we can ever make any sort of choices, that we can ever break free from that suspicion of conspiracy that is driving my friends mad, that know that there is a conspiracy out there, because there is, but they just can't find it. All they can find are word salads and lies by people who are actually part of the conspiracy. Let's render all the conspiracy wallers also thoroughly open all their tax accounts. Let's see who's bribing them to say the conspiracies that they are saying to hide the freaking truth. If I have got to be visible, then so have they. So have us all. Because in being thoroughly visible, we have a different sort of power in the end.